Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel and welcome to a new episode of Project LS 400. This episode is going to be an unnumbered episode because it's an in-between episodes episode. I want to address some viewer questions, have to do some small things to the car, and I haven't been with the car or working on the car since the last episodes, which is about 6-7 weeks ago now. So let's get started. What do we have planned for this episode? So the front left tire is losing air, and every now and then I have to come back with my compressor and inflate the tire. I'm gonna do that now. Furthermore, I want to address an issue with the central door locking system. A viewer commented me, I believe it was either via Instagram or via YouTube, I'm not sure. It's about the receiver module in the trunk. And some little bit extra information that can be helpful for other LS400 users. And there was a viewer that responded to the episode in which I repaired the ECU, and I've got something to show under the hood there. So let's get started. So these fairly old tires, I believe they are 15 years old now. This tire loses a lot of pressure, as does the left rear tire, so I'm going to inflate them. They usually are inflated to about, I believe, 2.2 bar. I'm going to overdo that a bit by inflating them to 3 bars, so they hold there for 2 months, and then I have to re-inflate them. So, warning, loud noises. Previous episode you've seen me working on the central remote controlled door locking system. I wanted to get a system working where you can press the button on the key and you can lock and unlock the doors, and I thought the fault could be in the driver's side door that didn't completely turn to locked, to the motorized locked, and I thought it wouldn't trigger a switch, so the system doesn't register that door as being fully closed and locked, and that could be the culprit. I took it apart. You can see that in the previous episode, the link is up here. But it didn't solve my problem. In fact, it didn't really do much actually, and it was a whole lot of work. And then a viewer contacted me and pointed out it could also be in a communication between the key and the receiver module over here in the trunk. There is a memory card, a small chip, that stores the code that has to correspond with the code the key transmits, and if you find to be the culprit inside that system, in which the communication between the key and the module isn't established, either because of the transmitter in the key is broken or the memory card in the trunk is broken, you can order a new set of keys at the Lexus dealer. It's going to cost you a whole lot of money, I'm afraid. And a set of key comes with a new ROM module, and you can install a new module, and then everything you should be working in. Only problem may be that you may have to switch the door locks too. So this is for the people and folks who really want to keep things original and fully working. It's going to be a whole lot of work. But anyway, I'm going to pick up the camera now and show you where the module houses and how you can take out the ROM module. So up we go. So let's have a deep dive inside the trunk. Shed some extra light on there. So what we have here, this is the ROM module, is the receiver, here is the antenna cable and communication wires, and this is some kind of noise suppressor, not exactly sure what it does. And as you can see here, I hope the camera will focus on that. It says RCD&L. It is a sign of approval for the transmitter because it uses radio frequencies. and you had to have an approval back in the day. And it also has the Belgian and French approval over here. So this module lives in here. It's usually covered by the upholstery in the trunk, but there's this small door heads opening over here with a crosshead screw, and if you remove that, you'll have access to the ROM module that stores the key code. So I'm gonna put a camera on a tripod and get that out. To get the lamp out of the way. And you can pick out this little latch, and there is this small circuit board. You can get a pair of pliers and needle nose pliers, hit it in the middle and then pull it out, and here it is. I hope it shows. Focus on camera. This is the ROM module that stores the key code, and if you order a new pair of keys, new set of keys, you can also get a new module and install that. And as said, it might be the case that I'm not sure those are pre-cut keys, or you can have them cut to the door locks and the door cylinders you have in the car. But anyway, that's the story on this, and this may also be broken because we tested the key and we know the transmitter in the key is working. You can simply test it by setting an FM radio to a certain frequency, hold the key near the antenna, push the button, and then you can hear a signal, and then you know the transmitter is working. So when this is broken, there's also no communication between the key and this module. So I'm gonna put it back in right now. Just make sure you grab it here in the middle so you don't touch any of the components. You don't really have to squeeze it, and there are no circuits on the back. It's fairly simple. Just put it in, put it back in straight. Put the cover back on. Had to do that off camera because I couldn't get a screw to get started in the thread on the inside. This is not an ideal position to work in. Thankfully, both of these nuts get started. Held in place with two 10mm nuts, M6 and 10mm socket. So that's back in. I'm gonna put upholstery, the covers back in later. In one of the previous episodes, you've seen me repair the leaking capacitors on the engine ECU of my French LS400. After the repair, the car ran fine, and we thought it was perfectly repaired, but unfortunately after a couple of weeks the car had the same problems again with a stalling engine and difficult to start and all. So it either might be that my repair was unsuccessful, or I'm pretty sure I didn't miss a leaking capacitor. I replaced them all, but may have been a fault in my soldering. So in order to overcome the newfound problems, my friend ordered a refurbished ECU from the States. It's coming from this company, or put a link down in the description. I don't know how YouTubers do that. Anywho, he ordered one. But today I got a viewer question. Hi Seth, he had the same problems, same issues. So he asked about where to get the capacitors and how to do it. And he also had a problem with the instrument panel, which I covered in this episode. And the ECU repair is in this episode. But I also gave him a tip, because I later learned there's another issue, a very common issue with these LS400, and those are bad mass contacts, ground contacts in the engine bay, which can also cause electric problems and have the same symptoms as leaking capacitors. So we're gonna have a look at the workshop manual, and then I'm going to point out in the engine bay where those mass contacts where those mesh contacts are. So let's go to my small workbench over there and have a look in the workshop manual. So this is the page for the wiring diagram. Motorsteuerung, left-hand drive, meaning the ECU unit. And on the bottom of each page it shows the mesh contact points. This is German, but it's self-explanatory when you read this, but this isn't. Where do we have a mesh contact point? It's on the front of the left wing of the left front wheel, and we have C here. It's also in the engine bay on the back side of the cylinder head, on the right cylinder head, and because it's a left-hand drive car. And when you have a right-hand drive car, the mesh contact point is on the back side of the left cylinder head. So, and there's also a mesh contact point in the footwell, in the right-hand side footwell for the left-hand drive model, which I have. And this is in the we call it glove compartment, where the ECU is located. So this is at the ECU itself, a mesh contact point. And there's also one in the C pillar, either on the right hand side when you have a left hand drive car, and on the left hand side if you have a right hand drive car. So we're going to have a look at this point B and C, because those 2 points under the bonnet are exposed to weather and moisture and all, and when they have some corrosion or bad connectivity, they can also cause the same symptoms as leaking capacitors in the ECU has. So let's head back to the car and have a peek under the bonnet. So the first mesh contact point is hiding under here in this fuse box. It's this point down here behind the main fuses. If you would have a bad contact, a bad mesh contact here, we would have lots of electric issues, which aren't the case, but you might want to look in there, and also the negative terminal on your battery. Just have a look in here, get a bit more light on there, the wiring over here and below. You also might want to check below the battery, everything is clean. That's one. Let's go to the other side, because this is a left-hand drive car. There is a mesh contact point on the rear of the right-hand side cylinder head, which is back here, and I wish I could show you, but there's a wiring loom sort of in the way. But on the back of this cylinder head there's also a mesh contact point. You might want to check, but I highly recommend to have a good look around the entire engine bay, where you have these terminals connected to the car's body. Just loosen them, clean them, a little bit of dielectric grease or contact spray on there, and then put it back together, and that may solve a lot of those electrical shenanigans and culprits. So that's that. And now we're on to the last part of this episode. I found this box in my shelf and I completely forgot about it, and I looked inside. Apparently I forgot something. This is the fuel filter I had planned to replace, so I'm gonna do that to finish off this episode. And to be honest, the car has been sitting here for over half a year now. I had at first had the intention to get it running before this summer, but then a lot of things happened in the world and also health-wise, so I postponed it to summer next year. So fuel filter time it is. So the fuel filter lives. You can see that. I hope you can see it there. It's this cover and one of the rear mufflers. So you're gonna have to take off that bolt, that bolt, that bolt, and by the look of that crease over there, someone has bent this before, so take these 3 bolts off, and then we should have access to the fuel filter. You need a 10mm socket to get the buggers loose. Let's see how tight they are. Yeah, that's one broken. It's a small brace that breaks. Alrighty. Now there's a 5th one over there. So let's have a look, see. So there you have the fuel filter. It's held in place with those rusty nuts over there in the back. I'm gonna do that. And as you can see, those lines, this one and that one over there towards the engine, are hard lines, so I can't pinch them off. So hopefully I don't get soaked in fuel. Costs a fortune nowadays. Another thing I noticed, it's a bit worrying, is the corrosion on one of the return lines. And it's strange because it's actually very dry and clean over here. There are no spider webs, there's no mud, but you can see that the line on top of the screen is rusty, so I'm gonna treat that with some corrosion inhibitor. I had good hopes to finish recording this episode in one evening, but this very rusted nut through a kink in the cable. This very rusty nut somehow got in the way. It's very seized, so I'm gonna resort to WD-40 here and soak it in and come back tomorrow and hopefully then get it loose. The rear one did come loose, it starts dripping, so I got my cat's tray already fairly filled, but when I have cracked this one loose, I'm gonna pull it out and throw in the new one straight away. So oh, it reminds me of a channel I like to watch, Candy Kizzle's Rusty Nut Wrench, and I always joked off camera that doesn't apply to a Lexus because there are no rusty nuts, but unfortunately found someone. Gonna soak the back one in also a bit. Oh, there's a lot of rust coming off, so let this sit overnight, come back tomorrow after work and see if we can crack it loose. Then it's the following day. I had it soak in WD-40 overnight, and I also bought some hollow wax for the corroded lines. And now let's have a look-see down there. Let's see if we can get this front one cracked loose now. Alrighty. Now, let's get the new one out of the box. It has a flow direction, of course it has, and this one with the flange is facing backwards and the fuel is running, coming in from this side and exiting on this side. This is how it should be. Let's get it ready. Hope we don't leak too much fuel. So that's the old filter out, and the bracket is held in place with this one nut. I got the new one already in, hopefully to stop it leaking. It's just dripping away. I leaked about half a gallon right now, so I'm gonna quickly commence, remove the bracket, install it on the new filter, and then get the, hope you can see it, get that line connected. Look at it dripping away. $1 a drop. Finally got the new filter in, and trust me, you don't want to do this with a car on its wheel on the ground. You really need a car lift. Don't have any plugs. The fuel from the tank will keep on dripping at a substantial rate. I spilled about half a gallon, which is quite much, and it ran down my arm, so massive failure. But thankfully the new filter is in. One thing to note is that there's no pressure on the line towards the engine, so you want to start with that one first and then do the rearmost one and keep the bracket loose so you have some wiggle room. Anyway, that's in. Now I'm gonna attack the rusty line, brush it, and put some hollow section wax on there. And that's how it looks right now. I got a shield back on. Sorry guys, it's hard to hold the camera while laying on the side. Got a shield back on, some wax coating on there. You can see the fuel filter. So, and I tore off that part because it's held in place with 2 aluminum brackets, and it's attached with some point welds and they came loose, so I stripped it off there. Anyway, that's in. And one last thing I want to show you before I wrap up this episode. In the episode where I repaired the instrument panel, I didn't remove this cover on the steering column. It's not really necessary if you lower the steering wheel to its lowest position and most inwards towards the driver's seat. You should have enough clearance, but if you need to have that extra bit of wiggle room, or if you want to access those indicator stocks for some reason, you can remove it. There are a couple of screws down here. You can see 1, 2, and it's important to know that there is a hidden screw back there, the center of the screen, this one here. So if you turn the steering wheel a little bit to the left or to the right, you can access that screw. If once that one's out, you can then remove the covers from the steering wheel. So with that being said, you can see I've powered up the car, so the fuel pump is running. I'm gonna check for leaks and let the car run for a bit, and also put a little bit of fuel in there because you can see the tank is almost dry. So before I add some fuel to the car, we spilled half a gallon. I'm gonna put 10 liters in, and over here in Holland we have E10 fuel, which contains 10% ethanol, which is really bad to use in older cars because E10 it affects the seals and the rubbers in the fuel lines, so it can cause leaks and so, and it also absorbs a lot of water, which you don't want to have in metal fuel lines. So what I usually do is just tank E10 fuel and add E10 cleanup, which deactivates the ethanol and it lubricates and cleans the fuel system. You really don't have to use much. It's only 1 milliliter per liter. So for a 10-liter tank, I only have to use 10 milliliter of E10 cleanup. I really like this stuff. It's not cheap. It's about €10 a bottle, and in the end it's much cheaper than buying ethanol free fuel. So let's fire this old girl up. Oh, did you see the fuel gauge? Oh, there's only 10 liters, so that gives me good hope. Well, let's see if she starts. And there we are. Ah, there's a fuel pump starting to squeal again. Now let's check for leaks. No drips. Well guys, I hope you can hear me. That's the air suspension blowing off. There are no fuel leaks to be found, just a small coolant leak from that Jubilee clip over there. I tightened it a bit more, dabbed the leaking coolant off, and now everything seems to be working very nice. And also the power steering pump stopped making noise, so all of a sudden I got a feeling that the car is road ready. It has some MOT on it. I'd say put some air in the tires, get an insurance and get it out, but that's something for a later episode. So in what should have been an in-between episode became a very eventful episode with a replacement of the fuel filter. I really wish I had done things differently, but it is what it is. We all make mistakes, but you can't afford to make mistakes with leaking fuel lines and the amount of fuel that leaked. So that was a dumb thing to do on my part. But anyway, the new filter is in. I answered some viewer questions. We started the car again for the first time in a long time. We don't have any fuel leaks. We only had a small coolant leak, but it was just a Jubilee clip that needed to be tightened. Anyway, the car seems to be running fine, and also it seems that the power steering system is some sort of bleeding itself, because when the car idled down to a normal idle, when the car is at operating temperature, the power steering pump became quiet all of a sudden. And the only thing I need to do is to fill up the level, because the power steering fluid should be a bit higher because of the expansion rate. So I'll fill it up for the next episode, let the car warm up once again, turn the steering wheel, and then see excuse me, and then see if the power steering pump finally gets quiet, and otherwise I need to go on the hunt for a new one. Anyway folks, thanks for watching this episode. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to ask me. I'll put a link to my email in the description down below. Description box is getting overly filled this episode, but anyway, if any questions, just put them in the comments or email me and I'll try to answer them to the best of my abilities. Anyway, thanks for watching and see you in the next episode. Bye bye.